Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of May I Interrupt? A slightly irreverent, but guaranteed to be interesting podcast broadcast that we're here from GSLS in a booth surrounded by world's experts in contact lenses. Except for,
Right, I'm in the same booth with you.
yes, my partner, Dr. Jason Jedlicka, who's also irreverent and interesting.
Only
sometimes.
toward you, Craig.
Sometimes interesting.
Rarely more irreverent toward you.
Definitely.
Yes. Never
Well-
toward our guests, though.
We have a phenomenal guest, don't you think?
I do.
It's all relative.
We have with us Dr. Lyndon Jones from Waterloo and the CORE group. We're going to ask you to explain CORE in just a couple of minutes. But
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're
This
welcome.
is great.
I was here anyway.
It's proper to shake my hand now that I put it on. Thank you very much.
You could do the fist bump thing if you want.
Okay, this is going to be a challenge. I can see that already.
You're not kidding.
Play tough. Play tough.
Okay, all right, I will.
So, Lyndon, what's going on in your life? Because I normally, when I talk to you, you share what's going on in your life at the first sign of, how are you? Yeah, well, let me tell you how.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just last week I was 60, and that's really miserable.
Congratulations.
How the hell did that happen?
You were what?
60.
60.
What? Last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, I guess.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So that was a bit of a milestone. So 25 years now I've been in Waterloo. So left private practice in the
Yeah.
UK 25 years ago to become an academic.
Yeah.
Was going to do that for a couple of years before going back to the UK and kind of never did. So now I've got the privilege of being the director of CORE. So CORE is the Centre for Ocular Research and Education. We're the largest university-based group doing contact lens, dry eye, drug delivery and myopia control research. It's about just over 50 of us, based just outside of Toronto.
Yeah. So the CORE acronym is now what, 3 years old? Or?
5 years old,
5?
actually. In fact, it's 5 years old this month. So
Wow.
we relaunched from CCLR, the Centre for Contact Lens Research, to CORE in January 5 years ago.
Yeah. Your group has such a terrific reputation.
Thanks.
And besides the reputation, I'll tell you turn out a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
We do. Our plan always is to publish between 40 to 50 papers a year.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that consistently now for about 10 years. So during the pandemic year, actually, because there was less clinical work going on, we actually managed to turn out 65 peer-reviewed papers that year,
Yeah.
and about another 25 clinical articles. So we ramped it up for that year. But yeah, we try to get up around that sort of 50.
Right.
50
So
number
Linda,
a year.
I don't remember the exact time frame, but you were recently recognized as the most published, right? Yeah, over a certain time frame, was that? Or
So yeah, so basically, if you look at publications, lifetime for an optometrist, I am third at the moment. So third most published optometrist
over a
ever.
lifetime?
Since people started, so since Scope started reviewing those
Yeah.
back in the 1970s, I think. So, and that's really just because we have such a big group, and I'm very fortunate that because we publish so many papers.
And
I'm
who's number 1 and 2?
So number 2 is Nathan Efron, and number 1 is someone whose name I have forgotten,
Yeah.
sadly. But he's Canadian. So,
Interesting.
so Canadian. So Canadian, Australian, and a Brit.
So it's not Desi, right?
It's not Des.
Yeah.
No. So Des is up there, but he's
Wow, interesting. Another Canadian as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite an honor, really. Congratulations.
well, and again, it's really the group. I mean, it's
Yeah. Well, it takes a team. for
Yeah.
sure.
it does. I mean, we're
But
fortunate.
but leadership is what makes that team go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's good. We have a great group.
I remember that when I was involved in trying to set up that research unit at MCO, I sat down with Desi,
Yeah.
gave a little bit of advice if I could for Desi. And I'll never forget, he told me that there was a member on your team that could write out a first draft of a peer review article in a day.
Oh yeah.
In a
That's
day.
impressive.
That's
Yeah.
to get the first
They know
draft
their
in it.
stuff,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes it easier for the head start, right?
Sure.
For sure.
Instead of monkeying around for weeks trying to figure out what the to start editing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's terrific.
Yeah, and it's nice that we have such a we have such a big team that in terms of doing research, because we're able to we've got a fully dedicated recruitment team, data entry team, scheduling team,
Yeah.
people to look after all the supplies. It really is it's a machine. So we're fortunate to have the group that we have.
And Lyndon, how big is the team these days?
So it's just over 50. So, and it divides pretty much up into three groups. They're fairly equal in terms of size. So about a third of our group are researchers, and they're basically split between clinical researchers, so optometrists who see the patients, and basic scientists. So we do, we've got full toxicology, microbiology, cell biology, so that group. Then we've got a third who are the support staff who really support the clinical trials. And then a third are students. So we have about a third of our group that are, I think we've got 17 or 18 MSc, PhD and postdocs at the moment. So that's quite good as well, because we can train those up and then send them out to places like this.
Right.
And many of them end up going into industry. So now we're seeing these guys actually working in industry, bringing research projects back to us. So that's it's a nice cycle to see.
Yeah.
And does everything you do have something to do with contact lenses?
No, not at all. So we basically have kind of four main areas. So contact lenses is certainly our biggest. Dry eye is a big area for us as well. We do a lot of ocular drug delivery stuff, so that's a big platform for us now. And then the fourth area would be myopia control, and that's spectacles, contact lenses, and pharmacology as well, pharmacy as well. So yeah, those would be the four main areas that we look at. And then a lot of the basic science stuff that we do, which is much earlier, would be the kind of toxicology and the microbiology stuff that may be related to those products or could be related to something else.
Okay, interesting.
So, as far as, first of all, the 50 number is big, because I remember it was around 35 to 40 not that long ago.
Yeah, correct.
And that was a lot of mouths to feed as well.
That's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge to raise money these days.
Sure.
It's particularly with the economy being what it is at the moment.
Yeah.
It's there's lots of concerns amongst companies about what this recession is going to look like. See again today, Microsoft laying people off.
Yeah.
Saw Alphabet laying people off last week. So there's a genuine concern that how much is this economic downturn going to impact the contact lens
Well, and
industry?
in the tech market, you're seeing the numbers are always big. 10,000, 13,000 jobs,
Yeah.
15,000 jobs. Now, they never really say we have 300,000 people working for us, right?
That's right.
It would be nice to know what that means,
Right.
That
Yeah.
13,000.
What percentage it is?
Yeah.
Correct.
So, where do you think CORE is relative to other ocular/contact lens research entities in the world?
Well, I say we're the largest.
Yep.
So in terms of scope of what we do, we probably have the broadest scope.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other absolutely fantastic organisations doing great work. UNSW in Sydney, Phil Morgan's group in the UK, Michel Guillon in the UK, several institutions in the US who are pumping out clinical stuff, all basic science, but not many people are fortunate enough, like we are, to have that full broad scope of, right through from very, very basic early science right through to the final clinical project. And much of the projects that we do are actually on non-approved products in Canada, so we will then have to make application to Health Canada in order to be able to do those. So a lot of investigational products go through us as well.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of scope, we probably are the broadest, and we certainly are in terms of numbers of people.
Yeah. So, on a personal level, are you still teaching?
Yep.
Are you
Yep.
teaching within optometry or
Yep.
other? Didn't you teach elsewhere at the university as well?
So I am cross-appointed. I have a position in other departments at Waterloo as well. So I'm cross-appointed to engineering, so chemical engineering, also chemistry, biology, and physics as well. So I have graduate student projects going on in those, but I don't teach in those departments. I only teach in optometry. So I teach the basic contact lens course and work in clinic seeing patients.
Yeah. So, Jason, the theme of today is you and I are not working hard enough.
Apparently, right.
Apparently.
I feel like I'm
Exactly. I thought I was working a lot until about an hour and a half ago.
but it's giving me a little motivation now to
Yeah.
be like, get your act together and
Yeah.
get with it.
Well, but you're
Because
more
we-
active on the scene doing
I know, but
lectures.
between Dottie and
Yeah.
Langi and now
Yeah.
Lyndon, it's like you guys are just, I don't know where you get the energy to do all
Yeah.
the things you do, but I need a little bit of that.
I think we're fortunate to we enjoy what we do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, of all the things that I do, so I basically do research, teaching, and administration. It's the teaching that I love the most. So,
Yeah.
coming out to this and educating the students is actually the thing I really enjoy the most, yet sadly it's the thing I do the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy it while you can.
In a lot of ways, I think, and I don't know if I'm not trying to speak for you, but the teaching and the research personally are the things I like best. The admin stuff is
it's
like
terrible.
a necessary evil,
Yeah.
but you do it when you're called upon to
Sure.
do what you need to do. So yeah.
Yeah, these days, sadly, in academia, you have no choice.
Correct.
The further up the ladder you get, the more administration you end up having.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lyndon, where do you think we're headed with myopia control?
I think it's going to become mainstream for sure. I mean, it's interesting that the CAO, the Canadian Association of Optometrists, actually put out in this summer just gone a position statement saying that myopia management is now the standard of
Standard
care.
of care. Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty sure we were the first organization in the world to say that. And that really made a big statement to clinicians to say, if you're not doing this, if you're not offering this, if you have patients who are fast progressing myopes, your duty of care is to find someone who can look after them.
Yeah.
So either do it yourself or refer them out. So I do think now, as we start to become more and more aware of how we can manage these kids, we've got great products out there that we know we can use on label that work.
Yeah.
We've got great devices to be able to monitor their progression. You just look here how many options there are to measure axial length,
Sure.
to be able to.
Especially compared to just a few years ago,
It's
right?
astonishing.
Yeah.
Really, it blows my mind about the number of multifunction instruments that can do all kinds of things now in your practice. And certainly, if I was in practice starting today, I don't know if I'd want to believe that I can rely on bringing in my income from the old days of just selling specs and contact lenses.
Yeah.
I think I'd want to diversify and specialize. And the three areas that I would really want to capitalize on would be myopia management, specialty lens care, and dry eye.
Yeah.
And we've got so many great toys. You look around this exhibit hall here, and I mean, it's just jam-packed with pieces of kit that are unbelievable that simply didn't exist 5 years ago. For sure.
Yeah, and our profession has evolved in that those three things you just mentioned are very much a needed service, and they're service-based. They're different, that they're providing not a product so much. Even the specialty lenses, they're a product, but it's the expertise behind the prescribing of that.
Exactly.
So these are all service-based ways to give your time. And I think that, to me, again, it seems like it's more on you rather than on your salespeople, your
Right,
opticians,
right.
things like that.
Right. So if you looked in a crystal ball going forward, do you think the big breakthrough will be in devices or pharmaceuticals, spectacles?
Well, I mean, where have your listeners in the US, you don't have spectacles.
Right.
We're fortunate in Canada that we have 3 approved sets of specs. That's a game changer for myopia management because we're all used to fitting specs to kids. I think people, I can understand the reticence that the practitioners have about fitting very young kids with contact lenses. It can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
And I can understand why they don't necessarily want to go down the pharmaceutical route. Spectacles are a game changer. So
Yeah.
once you have those approved in the US, I think you're really going to see an acceleration in myopia management in the US. So I think it will be devices. But the other thing I think that will change it is education. I think at the moment we still are not as good as we could be about making sure that practitioners understand the importance of diagnosing and managing dry eye and diagnosing
Right.
and managing myopia,
Right.
myopia progression. So I think education is another big opportunity, and certainly for us, I mean, one of the reasons that we changed our name from CCLR to CORE was that Centre for Ocular Research and Education is something we take very seriously. That we have a very dedicated group that take the information from our basic science and our clinical trials and make sure we get that information out there in many different formats. And I think that's also changing. it used to be for an academic group that all of your publications were peer-reviewed publications.
Right.
Practitioners don't read peer-reviewed
Right.
publications. They
Right.
don't have access to them. They don't have time. They don't want to. They might read the abstract, but getting that information through in terms of professional publications and using things like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, other forms of electronic communication are really expanding now. And a lot of the younger practitioners, that's how they like to get their education. So we need to think differently, I think, about the way that we provide education and also make it short. You know, people don't want to listen to a 50-minute lecture anymore. They want to do things like listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Get short, snappy, 15-minute sound bites. Give me the information, give me all that. Don't give me the fluff. Give me what I need to know.
You know, especially when you talk to a lot of young people today, let's say a young optometrist, when they're listening to a podcast and they listen at 2x, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's never 1x, right?
There's no time to listen at normal speed.
You know, and if I can't get it up to 2x, I mean, forget it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, to your point, it's got to be quick. It's a 30-minute lecture. I got 15 minutes, right? 2x.
Yeah. Well, I've got a daughter who's a medic. She's an obs and gynae resident, and she gets all of her information, or a big chunk of her information, this way through podcasts. She loves listening to podcasts and loves listening to short video clips.
Yeah.
I haven't got the time to listen to a 50-minute lecture. I've got
Right.
no interest. So that
And for instance, maybe not so much when you have a video cast like this, which is also a podcast as well. But for a podcast, you can use it while you're doing something else.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's if you're watching something, you're kind of dedicated, whether it's on your mobile device or television screen or whatever it might be. But with a podcast, I mean, you could be jogging, you could be driving, you could be doing whatever.
She listens to a lot of it when she's driving. That's exactly what she does. So, on her way to work, she'll listen to something and get her information out.
Yeah. So the other thing is, Lyndon, I like the way you are putting out some of the content pieces. Very colorful, very up to date. They're good to look at.
Yeah.
Over and above what the content is, right? I mean, so you look at it and go, well, I should check that out. And
Yeah,
so,
we don't
kudos.
always like to admit that the prettiest picture gets our attention.
Yeah.
But when everything is just black and white,
Yeah, for sure.
okay. When you put it out there in a format that's I can absorb it quickly and it piques my interest,
The
it
nuggets,
does.
right?
I will go there first.
Yeah. So kudos to the team
Thanks. Yeah.
and their leader. That
I just get out of their way.
going on.
It's better that way.
Yeah,
Much
but
better.
it's really, you're doing a lot of great things.
Well, thank you. It's good to know.
Jason, to wrap things up,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you could crystal ball it 10 years, I don't know, 15, whatever.
Yeah.
Thinking in terms of managing myopia, what is there that we're not doing now that could become the way we manage it in the future? I sometimes, and I'm just going to throw some stuff out there. Sometimes I think about, what if we took every myopic child at the infancy of their myopia development and did some type of corneal reshaping ablation, laser ablation to permanently put a myopia control shape to their cornea.
Yeah.
Of course, there's lots of risks involved and it's going to change, so that's not really a great answer, but the next step being what? An extended wear contact lens? I mean, what could we be doing that we don't envision right now? Is there anything that you can think of? Would it be a medication? Would it be a pharmaceutical approach?
Yeah, and I think that, or maybe some kind of genetic treatment, may well be something I think that's a long way down the line. That if you know that the person's at risk, there is some form of genetic engineering that you can change these people. I think that, but honestly, I think the biggest thing that we need to do is we've got really good devices and things now. I think what we're not doing is we're not basically providing the information on how you can move that into your mainstream practice. And it's again just like dry eye. How can you make the business model work? Because it takes time. Talking to someone about their dry eye and about managing the myopia does take time. How can we streamline that to make it work within your practice? So I think there are huge business opportunities around training optometrists to go. I think they're getting the fact that it's worth doing. I think they know the fact that the products now work. It's how do I do that? How am I going to actually work that in to my practice flow, and I think that needs to happen for it to become mainstream.
Yeah, one of the interesting things at our program at Indiana is, I've been on board with myopia management for years and years, Ortho-K, what have you. When my site got approved, our pediatrics department embraced the idea of myopia management, said, well, now it's...
Right. We understand soft lenses, we understand.
And since our pediatric department has embraced it, I mean, we're managing 5 times more children for myopia because they bought in, and now... So I think, and a lot of it for me personally was having myopic children that I fit in Ortho-K 15 years ago who are still basically the same prescription 15 years. It's that personal, I think, when you buy into something personally, not because you're drinking a Kool-Aid that's not real, but because your eyes are open to the truth about this is necessary and it works. I think I agree with you. How do we get more people to go, this is real, true, and I do need to be doing this because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
People, I think, in a lot of ways, they get comfortable in their practice. I have a good living. I'm already busy.
Yeah.
I don't want to be troubled. But that's not really what's best for our patients.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's going to be driven by young people. I think the young practitioners are the ones who are coming through.
Here's where I also think is going to have an impact is that if you look at the industry, the eye care field in the U.S., and of course Canada's almost always the same except 10% of the market, right? I mean, it's give or take, is that well over 50% of the eye care that's delivered is done in some type of commercial setting. So until you, especially young families, young kids, very common. So until some process is simplified enough and inexpensive enough to get into that channel, it's going to hold back the possibility for growth.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I don't mean eye growth, I mean industry growth, right?
The other thing is, again, looking at the contact lens research that we do, one of the other things I think that really needs to change is an acceptance of practitioners of the fact that we actually have really good contact lens products now. Why are we not using them? The contact lens penetration is still terrible. And it's better here than it is in many areas of Europe. Looking at 3 to 4% in some areas of mainland Europe. So I think, again, practitioners need to understand that there are big growth opportunities with the contact lens products that we have now. We've got great torics, superb multifocals. Follow the fitting guide, they work. Practitioners are still like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I think I'd rather have a tooth pull than fit a prosbopic lens. That's silly. They work. So I think, again, that we underestimate the possibility of using lenses. And when we think about contact lens wearers, we always want them to have a pair of backup specs. We don't do the reverse. We don't think about every spectacle wearer having an opportunity to wear lenses. And with daily disposable lenses now, I think every single spectacle wearer should be given that opportunity to try daily disposable lenses. And I think, again, that's something that we really need to try to get the industry behind.
Yeah.
I don't know how we do that.
Yeah, I think what you said was interesting about the multifocals too, because at the school we have it's obviously academic institution. We have this staple workshop.
Yeah.
And where all the students get to fit multifocals on real patients, and the universal feedback afterwards is always like, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And they leave going, I can do this.
Yeah.
What's wrong with people? Well, how can we? But what the key is, I think, is we follow the fitting guide. And we make them follow it, and it works. And so I think too many practitioners, they get complacent about that, or maybe they're not taking the time to update the prescription properly before they embark upon the fitting or what have you. But I think there's so much opportunity.
It really is.
And our contact lens wearing patients are our practice builders, and people are missing the boat, and so much potential for growth, and we love to complain about the way that these optical based firms are cutting into our bottom line, and yet we have so much opportunity in other avenues which are truthfully more professional and more of what we should be wanting to do, that we're missing those opportunities. And I think, again, how do we get people to open their eyes to those opportunities?
Yeah, and I think a lot of practitioners, particularly after COVID, like much of the COVID issues, like, I'm bored. I'm so bored with clinical practice. It doesn't have to be boring at all. there are great opportunities,
Right.
great products out there
Right.
now. You just need to use them.
Yeah.
So, don't sit there complaining that you're bored. Go out and do something about it. Start fitting, start doing dry eye management and myopia,
Yeah.
fit prosophic lenses. The stuff's there available. You won't be bored if you're doing all that stuff.
Especially if you're in a group practice, it's like, why don't you each take one thing?
Absolutely.
And let's send people back and forth for our services. And
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I think optometry has always wanted to be able to do it all for our patients,
Right.
and yet, what's the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none, or whatever. And so we often get into that situation where we're afraid to send our patient to a colleague.
Yeah.
But the reality is we shouldn't worry about that. We should focus on what we can do better, pour effort into getting better at something,
Yeah.
and encourage our
And,
colleagues
you
to
know,
get better at something.
Jason, you came out of the world just like I did, working so closely with ophthalmology, which is what happens all day long, every day,
Yeah.
is referrals, with not a
Sure.
second thought about anything,
No.
except getting it to the best person for that patient.
Yeah,
right?
and that's a great concept. You wouldn't expect someone who's a retina specialist to be a good corneal surgeon.
Yeah.
No.
So why should we? Someone who's really great at dry eye, does it mean they have to be good at fitting kids with contact
Yeah,
lenses? Of
not
course
at all.
No.
So I love that concept about in a group practice, why not have someone?
Yeah.
They each take responsibility for being the best they can at that thing.
And I think it's easier to present to the patient as well, that the expert in our practice is
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
And so, phenomenal. Thank you so much.
You're
we
welcome.
could sit here for the longest time, and you really did something wonderful. Is you actually made Jason interesting today.
Wow, look at that.
I knew
That's
I'd be
a
able
hell
to
of a
achieve
help.
something.
And that's because Craig never can. So
I'm still trying. Still trying.
Understand.
But sincerely, thank you so much.
You're very
wish
welcome.
we could continue to do this, and hopefully we can chat about things and again in the future.
Love to.
I want to, not to kiss ass or anything, but the legacy that you're leaving with what you're doing up at Waterloo.
Definitely.
I'm jealous, to be honest. I look at what you're doing, I go, you're inspirational to me. So
Well, thank
keep up the good work.
Cheers. Thanks. We really do have a great team.
Yep.
Literally every one of them is great persons.
Awesome.
Okay. And thank you, viewers, for sitting in through another episode of May I Interrupt. It was a fascinating interview today with Dr. Lyndon Jones. Thank you for myself, my partner, Dr. Jason Jedlicka, and stay tuned for more. Take care, everybody.